Today, I have with me Mr. Gautam Roy, the media manager of our very own East Bengal Football Club. Hello, sir. It's a great honor to have you with us on the show. The first thing I'd like to ask you about, obviously, the World Cup. Who are you supporting and why?
Well, I'm from Calcutta, and like all other Calcuttans, I'm also supporting Brazil. I'll tell you why, because if you can see me, I'm pretty old. And when Brazil used to win the World Cup in 62s and 70s, we only heard about the famous Brazil, the famous footballers like Pelé, Vava, Garrincha, Zagallo, and Allrot, but we never saw them. But they won the World Cup in 62 in Chile. We heard the running commentary on BBC, I remember, and 70 again at Mexico. But during that period and slightly later, why we all became Brazil fans, because Brazil, there was a coach in Calcutta called Amal Datta, who had got movies or cinemas made of Brazil playing football matches at the World Cup, and came and showed in various clubs here in Calcutta, where we found out that that particular football was quite similar to the Indian football. Now, in those days, Indian football was right on top of Asia. And we had players like Balaram, Chunigoswamy, P.K. Banerjee, who with short passing, dribbling, ball control, who excelled in everything. And the Brazilians were similarly in nature. Now, India was not represented in the World Cup. So we have to get an identity every time a World Cup came up. So India were, as you remember, India were invited once, but then we didn't go in 1950. So after watching Brazil and finding them thrash the Europeans, because those were immediately the days of first 2 decades after the independence, where the anger against the colonialism was still there, and any team beating the European sides would thrill everybody to the hill. And plus, their type of football was quite similar to the Indian football, or particularly in those days, Calcutta football, which was Indian football. And of course, that Brazil and India both were third world developing countries. So we all became Brazil supporters. Then in 77, I all remember, the great Pelé came to Calcutta to play with Mohan Bagan, and the Calcutta went gaga over everything. And it carried on since there. And it was not before 1986 that Maradona appeared on the scene, and then the Calcuttans were again divided between Brazil and Argentina.
Exactly, sir. Now that we are just left with 8 teams in the World Cup, who do you think has the best shot at winning the trophy?
Well, I personally think France, though I would like to see Brazil win. But I think France is gradually improving, and they have a very young side, which they will be able to last. This is a 1-month tournament in the heat of summer in Russia. So they're playing in temperatures of like 30 degrees odd. And the French team, young players like Mbappe, Pogba, and all, I think they will be able to survive. It doesn't mean that my prediction will always come correct. I wish it doesn't, because I like to see Brazil win. And that is my prediction. And of course, the other 2 teams, Belgium, England, I was not very, quite happy, but we were all England supporters watching English Premier League. But since they have reached the quarterfinals, they have to lift their game standard. That is also a young side. England is also a young side. So they probably may even progress further.
All right. What we've seen the whole World Cup, the France side, they have a very good depth, they have a very good squad, but mostly in the group stages, they haven't really been able to deliver the best football.
No, I'll tell you, they started slowly, but they have been developing each game. Though against Argentina, the score was 4-3. Argentina scored the last goal in the last minute, I think, last extra time. The manner in which they came back from 2-1 to make it 4-2, that particular spell showed the France at its best, particularly this youngster called Mbappe.
Kylian Mbappe, exactly. So, in all, how do you think that this year's World Cup, this edition of the World Cup, has stood out from other World Cups?
Well, I think the standard has gone up, which is quite evident by the performance of the Asian teams. That's a remarkable. In 2002, South Korea reached the semi-finals, and Japan, I think, the quarterfinals, but that was played in Asia. The heat affected the other team. But here, in Europe today, I think I think the Asian teams excelled. Saudi Arabia, after losing by 5 goals in the first match, came back to win their last game. And South Korea and Japan both took the icing in the cake. Korean goalkeeper and the Japanese unfortunately lost. They should have won that match.
You have to mention Iran as well.
Iran also played very
Yes.
well, of course.
Yeah.
And they all, except even Australia, all the Asian sides.
Yeah, and actually this is a very controversial question, but I'd like to ask you this. What's your take on the age-old Messi-Ronaldo rivalry? I mean, according to you, and what was responsible, or who was responsible, or what were the contributing factors that led to their elimination in the World Cup?
No, Messi, Ronaldo are both over 30s. Now, what the rivalry was going on with Ballon, with Barcelona, Real Madrid, everything, they were played in each, whatever tournaments. But I think in the last two World Cups, at least in this World Cup, some youngster should have come up. And it should have been an icon, not a 30-year-old and a 34-year-old, 33-year-old. They, I think, are both past their prime. Messi there's no denying the fact that Messi is an outstanding football player, a God's gift to football, I would say, with his skills and everything, but unfortunately didn't make the World Cup. Ronaldo is more of a winger, who the goal poacher, and who also played earlier in the English Premier League for Manchester United. And then the rivalry took place when both were playing in Spain.
Exactly.
And the media was behind it. Everybody was behind it. They thought the Barcelona's success depended on Messi, and it did. And Real Madrid win with Ronaldo. Well, the other players, nobody heard about Mbappe and others before this World Cup.
Right. Okay, sir. We'll be shortly back after a short break. Thank you.
जिक्र जब भी जीएसटी की होती है तो नजरें ढूंढती हैं जीएसटी दोस्त विकास धनानिया को।
नमस्कार विकास जी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आने के लिए।
विकास धनानिया बात करते हैं पूरी जिम्मेदारी के साथ
कि यहाँ पर गुड्स को रिसीव्ड नहीं किया गया है। हाँ, लेकिन तब आपको ये प्रूफ करना पड़ेगा कि भाई हमने तो हैंड रिक्शा से मंगा लिया है।
आम आदमी जीएसटी को जानना चाहता है, लिहाजा सवालों का अंबार है। इन्हीं सवालों को समेटते हैं हमारे होस्ट राकेश। हर ट्यूसडे और फ्राइडे रात 8 बजे होस्ट राकेश और दोस्त विकास धनानिया हो जाते हैं आमने सामने, सिर्फ आपके लिए जियो बांग्ला पर। देखिए जीएसटी की बात दोस्त के साथ जियो बांग्ला पर।
Hello everyone, we are back after a short break and we have with us Mr. Gautam Roy. Now sir, I'd like to deviate a little and get into more regional football. I'd like to ask you this, do you think the Indian football team has a practical chance of qualifying, if not in 2020 then 26 or 2030?
You look at 2014, go back. And in fact, I was in Delhi last week. Every time, even who are non-football fans, well, there are plenty in that national capital, ask me every time the World Cup is played in India or in the world. In India, people start talking about football. What has been the India's progress? I told them in 2014, the World Cup was at Brazil, and today, 4 years down the line, there has been substantial progress in the Indian football. In the FIFA rankings, they have jumped up from 150 to 97. One of our teams, Bengaluru FC, reached the finals of the AFC Club Cup. East Bengal reached the semi-finals of the AFC Club Cup. India won the SAF tournament. Then there's recently the Hero Intercontinental Cup. One of our players, Sunil Chetri, he played 100 matches and scored more than 50 goals. And one 64, of our
64 actually.
More than 50 goals. I said that he was the first one to cross 50, and the first one to play 100. And the other chap, Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, was the first who played in the Europa League. And we had also the Indian Super League here, which was for the last 4 years, which was a revelation, a city-based franchisee. Exactly. Except for football, you see, they talk about Iceland being a small country and India being a 130 crore country. But India, football was played only in pockets like Goa, Northeast, Calcutta, Kerala, Bengal and South, some parts of South, not everywhere. It was not a pan-Indian football, and many tournaments have stopped, like the Kalinga Cup, the Stafford Cup. They've all ended because of shortage of funds, shortage of football players, shortage of teams, whatever it is. So the football was not, it was not an all India football like cricket, which is a religion in this country. So in this period, there's been a lot of development in the under youth leagues. We had also very successfully hosted the under 17 World Cup, which was accepted. And so I think India has made some progress in the next 4 years. It's always be to be optimistic that Indian football today with ranked 97 will not get next World Cup or the 2026 World Cup. I think they'll have 48 teams. So if they can go within that ranking of 48, India has a chance of going through to play the tournament proper. The progress has been in the direction. The same Iran team which played with India in the pre-World Cup. Of course, they beat us by 3 goals, but India played reasonably well in that match at Bangalore.
Exactly.
So India's progress is there.
And
another thing, the football is not only Calcutta-centric between East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, though it is the 2 major clubs. It is now becoming with this ISL and city-based franchise, more pan-India games.
Exactly. And so, as far as infrastructure is concerned, how has Indian football developed there?
Yeah, we were very weak in infrastructure, but the last World Cup under 17 has given up at least in 8 cities, 8 world-class stadiums. In Calcutta, if you go to Jordan and Amman, a city like Amman has 5 football top-class stadiums. Calcutta had none. Still about the Salt Lake Stadium came up in 1984. Before that, it was only Eden Gardens or the 3 Maidan grounds. After that, now recently, we have had the Salt Lake Stadium developed into a first-class football stadium, and there should be built more football stadiums. The Chinese formula is to build as many infrastructure stadiums so that they have targeted 2050 to be the champions, not only to play champions of the World Cup. China has only played World Cup once, but India has never played. So both these are very country with very large population, and the World Cup is missing out on fan following if they.
Okay, sir. And again, I'll ask you this from your club's perspective, as far as East Bengal is concerned. What has the club been doing to promote or uplift the next generation of players?
Yes, we have our grassroots program. We have our academies, football academies, where we train, educate. We have a residential complex also for the under 13, under 15, and under 18 teams. And they play in various tournaments, including national tournaments, including the National I League, of that category. So we have an academy here in Calcutta itself. We are developing players in this particular last season. When the main team played the I League, there were 5 players from the academy who played, and this year there will be even more. So in that way, the players are being developed, though in our academies and playing in the main team. In fact, just today, we signed a joint venture agreement with a large sponsor who will be financing us, called Quest Corporation, will be financing us for about the next 10 years. So with that, there's more opportunity of improving the football. If you see the East Bengal ground, the infrastructure there is very good. We have a media room, gym, everything is there. Ground and the stadium is full. We have now got floodlights. So I think
even we have seen before, like with Indian stadiums, drainage and all were like a really
now
big
it has
problem.
all been done. Drainage and everything has been improved. A lot of improvement.
All right, and I'll again probably go back to like one more question from the World Cup. In the words of many, this World Cup has been a World Cup of underdogs. We have seen, as we already talked about, seen Asian teams like Japan, Iran perform really well. So what do you think has changed in the global scenario?
No. Our too much emphasis on Messi, Ronaldo, the aged players. The underdogs were never realized that people were progressing in other areas. Their potential was never tapped. We were still focusing on these 2 players. These 2 players and these 3 players rather now. Neymar. So the underdogs have done very well. They have nothing to lose. They have to. This is for a player from Iran or Japan or even South Korea. This is the world stage, and they will have to perform. If they perform, only they will be recruited by big clubs. So they gave it. And for players like Barcelona players in the Spanish team or like Ronaldo, they are already established players. How much effort they are giving and to protect themselves, even their bodies have now become old, over 30, and this thing.
So
I think it's a good thing that the underdogs have come. That is the potential of the world football pool which is now also increasing.
And as I was saying, like we have seen in recent times, teams like Senegal or teams like Poland, they have their own stars in the form of Lewandowski or Sadio Mane. Every team or even underdog teams have big stars playing for big clubs like Liverpool, United, Barcelona. So can you like say on a global scale the footballing scenario has changed to the extent where there's proper emphasis on talent and not just big players or big names?
No. Now everything is professional. Even I was reading somewhere, penalty kicks taking for the tiebreaker, that is also professional. Earlier, we used to think penalty kick is just a lottery. Whoever wins this thing. Now, there's assessment done of each and every player, a right-footed penalty taker, and the goalkeeper assesses whether he will hit across the body or hit it on the corner. And these things are worked out. And a lot of coaching is given. So these are improvements going on. Like we have seen this video assistant referee for this World Cup, which is, I think, a good thing. So many penalty kicks have come, so many fouls were being done. And so everything in the right direction. Now we are getting 4 changes. It has come from, there were no changes in 1958 when Brazil won. And we have now today can substitute 4 players for a 120-minute game.
So talking about VAR, we have seen VAR has actually effectively given out good decisions, but at the same time we have seen referees who are reluctant to refer it to the video assistant referee. When do you think, or how do you think we can change it so that we can actually reduce human error?
No. Then you have to go by the DRS rules, which they have in cricket. There should be, this is up to the referee. If any player who feels that he has been wronged, has not been given the right direction, can also appeal and refer it as a review to the VAR. And can ask the referee to go and see the VAR, and VAR also has a string of referees who will give the correct, like in cricket we have the DRS.
So every team should have like a referral or 2.
The DRS, and they should get an opportunity of 2 or 3. In hockey they have.
Exactly.
And you see, these are steps in one by one. So it's definitely steps towards improvement.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, we come to the end of our show. Keep watching Googly Mania and like, share and subscribe to our page. Thank you.